on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06 on this super duper Wednesday. Why does Tuesday get to be super? What's wrong with Wednesday? And you're listening to O'Connor and Company. Thank you for doing that. That really means a lot to us, and we're gonna reward you with some fine programming, starting at 6:35 with Cut. No, that's not true. Starting right now, the fine programming. Then guests will join us.
Nice.
The way I was saying that, Julie, it sounded like you're gonna have a great show in about an hour and a half. Just bear with us.
No, we're ready.
No, we're flying out of the gates here with Super Tuesday results. Plus, at 6:35, Cal Thomas will be here. 7:05, we'll speak with Madison Gilbert. She's the spokesperson for the RNC. Talk about tomorrow's State of the Union and yesterday's Super Tuesday. 7:35, Bethany Mandel, running for Montgomery County School Board. 8:05, Rich Masters, spokesperson for the Recall Charles Allen campaign. And then at 8:35, Hogan Gidley, formerly of the Trump White House, give us his analysis of where things stand right now in the Republican nomination race. And we're going to do the same right now. That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Good morning.
It was Super Tuesday. And listen, if you're stunningly victorious like Donald Trump was yesterday, it was super.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
But Super Tuesday is
and
usually...
so were the meltdowns.
Well, there were a lot of meltdowns on MSNBC. You're going to like those. The Super Tuesday, was called Super Tuesday because this was a day that sort of like it solidified where things were headed in the nomination process, especially when it was competitive. Like if you had very rarely does the same candidate win Iowa and New Hampshire. Right. I mean, this is first time ever Trump won Iowa, won New Hampshire, and won South Carolina. No one's ever done that before. So, I mean, we sort of recognized where we're at here with this campaign. He's been in the lead in all the polls for so long. But yesterday, Donald Trump won literally everything except for one state. We're going to get to that in a moment. But here's President Trump yesterday.
Well, thank you very much. They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. And they tell me, the pundits and otherwise, that there's never been one like this. There's never been anything so conclusive. This was an amazing night, an amazing day. It's been an incredible period of time in our country's history. It's been sad in so many ways, but I think it's going to be inspiring because we're going to do something that, frankly, nobody's been able to do for a long time.
And, of course, he's referring to the fact that he's hoping to become the first president in over 100 years to serve one term, be out of office for a term, and then come back and serve another term. Who was that president who did that, by the way?
I don't know. Darn it.
I don't either. I was really hoping you would. I want to say Grover Cleveland.
Let's go with that.
I want to say Grover
That's
Cleveland.
That's going to be my guess.
You know that Michael Shelton, our sound engineer, is exactly. He'll jump it.
Second.
I'm right. He said I'm right. There you go. Well, he was checking.
Done.
He had to check it, though. I feel good about that. Usually he's got that stuff off the top of his head,
If it had been pop culture, he would have had it.
It was Grover Cleveland. Look at that.
Go.
I'm remembering my little Encyclopedia Britannicas when I was a kid. I would always look at the presidential page. Isn't that weird?
No.
Anyway, it was a resounding...
It was nice having encyclopedia. We could go on a whole tangent.
Were you an Encyclopedia Britannica family?
Yes, my parents.
It's
and
funny.
I loved it.
We were a World Book family, actually. I said Encyclopedia Britannica because that's sort of the Kleenex, right? The Xerox, the brand name.
Yeah.
But we had World Book.
World Book. Oh.
Yeah. Which I found out now. It's somebody. It was good.
Like the Inquirer.
It had pretty pictures. I realized, how we all grew up with those things, right? Do you know why?
Why?
Because people would go door to door.
They were salesmen. Yes, absolutely.
Like they were selling like the Fuller brush man.
And they would say, my mom once told me that they said, like, your kids will be, like, retarded, basically, if you don't get this.
If you don't get this. They already saw where public school was headed.
And my parents saw where I was going, and they quickly bought some. But
doing a little triage.
I'm sorry, this is a little tangent. Go on.
So Vermont was the one state that Donald Trump was unable to win.
Yep.
Nikki Haley took Vermont. And which, of course, you might say, wow, what makes Vermont different? Well, here's a couple of things about Vermont. They have not voted for a Republican for president since 1988.
Yeah.
That would be George Herbert Walker Bush. The last time a Republican candidate in Vermont got over 38% of the vote was in 2000, George W. Bush. He still didn't win. He only got 40% of the vote that year. It's not a really strong Republican state. I raise this for a reason, because people say, listen, Nikki Haley keeps getting 25% of the vote, and look, she just won Vermont. That means there's a huge part of the Republican electorate who is sick of Trump, and they want Nikki Haley. Why are we criticizing her? Why are we? I mean, even if she's not winning, she still represents a quarter of the Republicans, and in Vermont, the majority of the Republicans. No, she doesn't. So let's not look at Vermont for a moment. Let's look at Virginia, because maybe it's me, but I think the results in Virginia matter more to this program.
Sure.
Matter more. I think that better represents people who might be listening to our program.
Yep.
And say, hey, Nikki Haley's my gal, right? Yeah. So let's look at the Nikki Haley exit poll numbers in Virginia. 92% of Nikki Haley voters in Virginia yesterday approve of Joe Biden's performance as president. Not 50%. By the way, writ large across this country, only 36% of Americans approve of Joe Biden's performance. In Virginia, if you voted for Nikki Haley yesterday in the Republican conference,
which is open,
9 out of 10 of you approve of Joe Biden as president. There's a name for people like that, and it's not Republicans. Okay? I'm sorry. In fact, if you approve of Joe Biden's performance as president, why weren't you voting for Joe Biden yesterday?
Yeah.
Why would you then say, I love Joe Biden, he's the best? Here's my vote, Nikki Haley.
Yes.
And it's only one reason.
It's almost like there's spoilers out there.
I'm just so I'm just sick of the
I know.
We have to play this pretend game. It's so obvious what's going on here.
Yeah.
87% of Haley voters yesterday in Virginia, and again, all I care about basically from yesterday's results is Virginia, because those are our people, right? That's who we're talking. We're not a national show.
Yeah.
Trying to get things done here in our community. 87% of Virginia voters who voted for Nikki Haley said they're satisfied with the direction that America is in right now.
I mean, Haley should look at the people who voted for her and go, I don't want you guys around me.
Well, and this is the important thing to take away. Number one, Haley's voters aren't Republicans.
Right.
But they're more than that. They're not even Democrats who at least can say we can do better.
Yeah.
They're Democrats
who love Biden.
Who love Biden, love his policies, love the direction that he's taking us. Honestly, I think the votes that Nikki Haley got in the Virginia Republican caucus are basically people who work in the Biden administration.
Yeah.
Because they're the only ones in America left who are still supporting what this man is doing to our country.
But there are also the people that are so incredibly panicked about Trump. These are the TDS sufferers. Mm-hmm. These are the people who are wild-eyed about Trump coming back into office. These are the people who say it'll be the end of democracy. These are the people who want to put him in jail and take his money and take his businesses. These are the extremists. Yeah. And I think that, because look, I think there's a lot of Democrats who are like, hey, I'm going to go vote for Haley and kind of mess it up. I really think these are the most extremist Democrats who are terrified of a Trump administration and, again, are really looking for blood when it comes to Trump.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what we saw reflected in the Virginia results, despite the fact that Nikki Haley did so well with the pro-Biden, America is doing great Republican base. Donald Trump still eked out a victory by, 40 points in Virginia? Yeah. But we had some other expert commentary on Virginia voters yesterday in the primary from Jen Psaki, Joy Reid, and Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, because they're really in touch with the Virginia voters. We're going to let you hear what they had to say about you, Virginia, in just a moment.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Need a new roof? Honor, respect, and trust your home with Valor. Visit valorhome.com.
WMAL, making sense of the markets, because generational wealth doesn't build itself. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
All right, Virginia, you want to know how snide the New York liberal elite,
You want to know how much they hate
media
you.
people, how much they hate you. Yeah,
And they don't care that you're scared.
This is why you come here for your morning dose of sanity, and we appreciate that. It's why you stay here all day long, because if you're tuning over to MSNBC to find out what they think of Virginia voters and they're putting their finger on the pulse of the American electorate, well, here's Jen Psaki, Joy Reid, and Rachel Maddow tell you exactly what you need to know about all of your votes right now. This is, you got it? Yeah, there it is. Sorry. Here they are.
And if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue.
Yes.
I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area.
Build the wall. Like, what?
You know, last week, a little child was murdered by an illegal immigrant in Virginia. I guess I forgive these very well-paid news reporters.
You probably have
and
drivers
journalists
and guards
to not know about that.
Yeah.
And certainly Jen Psaki wouldn't know about that because they probably didn't mention it on Morning Becomes Electric.
Yeah. There is a tremendous problem with MS-13 in Northern Virginia. They recruit in Northern Virginia schools, not just high schools, but middle schools.
Yeah.
There are murders. There are rapes. There are gangs. Basically, the way that you rise within these gangs is you kill people.
Yeah, with
And-
machetes.
Yeah, and you shoot them in the back of the head.
Yeah.
It is very dangerous in Northern Virginia, and there's a gang task force that was recently disbanded despite increased activity with MS-13 because of all of the illegals coming into this area.
Yeah. And they're coming into this area because we know the Biden administration has been flying them into this area. That's also in the news, but I guess we can forgive Rachel Maddow for not knowing that because she only works one day a week these days.
Yeah.
Listen again to the mockery.
I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue.
Yes.
I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area.
Also, I think
What?
it's worth noting that that woman who started that conversation with that snide, sarcastic, elitist attitude, a year ago she was on the government payroll.
That's right, yeah.
She was the spokesperson for this administration. And one other thing, that little insight into liberal elites in New York on this. Immigration can be your number one concern, even if it doesn't directly affect you in your life. You can care about the people who are directly affected. Guess what? Fentanyl is a major concern of mine, and I am one of the few people around who hasn't had a family member or friend affected by it, but I still care about it.
I pulled my kids out of the Alexandria public schools years ago. Last night I was tweeting at two of the school board members because I care about the kids that are trapped in that system. And what makes me so sick is a Venezuelan illegal immigrant was allegedly sexually assaulted a 14-year-old in Virginia. You have a man suspected of attempted abduction in Virginia of a 4-year-old. He again was an illegal. You have an illegal immigrant accused of abduction, rape in Virginia, and he overstayed his visa.
Yeah.
You have ICE agents recapturing illegal immigrants charged with rape who was released into the streets of Virginia. These are headlines I'm reading.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting, and the fact that was an example of the primetime coverage of a major cable network owned by NBC and Comcast Universal, mocking, degrading, and also real fast, Rachel Maddow, pro tip. I mean, listen, you're doing better than me financially, but honestly, you missed the mark now. And if you're gonna make that joke, Virginia's not worried about the West Virginia border; it's the Maryland border that they're worried about. Get the joke right. It's 5:21.
Making sense of your world.
I'm a millennial, and I love your show.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
It's fantastic.
Making sense of the news.
I want to recount in Vermont. I don't even believe that Nikki Haley won Vermont. This doesn't make any sense. Trump won New Hampshire going away, right? The neighboring state of Vermont. Yesterday in Maine, Trump won by 47 points. And you're going to tell me Vermont is that much? I think people cross the border illegally from Canada. and voted for Nikki. Or again, we've got the Democrat. There's a larger Democrat base there to vote for Nikki.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally surprised by Vermont. It is the capital of the most liberal ice cream company.
That's
in the world.
true. It has Ben and Jerry's country.
Yes, so I think Vermont is a lovely state. I love driving through it, but it is sort of fallen off the cliff.
Texas, Trump by 60%. Arkansas, Texas by Trump by 58. Maine, I just told you, by 46. Oklahoma, Trump by 66. Massachusetts, Trump, it was a squeaker, by 23. Virginia, Trump by 28. North Carolina, Trump by 50. Alabama, Trump by 70 points. I'm guessing they had a closed primary where only Republicans could vote. California, Trump by 60 points. In California.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't have a lot of crossover there, I'm guessing, because, well, no, maybe you did. I'm just thinking there may have been some Democrats who were, voting because, Biden did not win every state. Biden lost America Samoa.
Nikki would be thrilled if she won America Samoa.
That would be great.
I was surprised by Massachusetts, 59% for Trump. Massachusetts.
All right, you want to hear more Joy Reid? Again. Let's go back to MSNBC and see how they're reacting.
But Republican voters don't vote that way. They don't vote based on economics or based on the benefits they're getting economically from the president.
The benefits they're getting. By the way, again, another insight, because this is how they think.
It's the whole natural rights conversation that your rights come from the government, that your economic benefits come from the government, not from the government getting the heck out of your way.
And this is the pitch they make to voters, Democrat-based voters. You vote for Biden, and here's what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
So again, she means this as a criticism. Republicans don't even vote in their best interest. Well, frankly,
Republicans. She's absolutely right. Republicans are like, get out of my way.
Right.
Do
Let me
less.
live my life. And by the way, your policies. Listen, I may be fine, as you put it, I may be fine with my kids in this school, private school or homeschooling, but you're still ruining our country with your policies.
And my kids have to interact with those kids.
If anything, there's something very altruistic about that. But listen, it's believe it or not, Joy Reid doesn't reach that conclusion.
They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want. A black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics.
No.
Listen, and all the suburban moms who watch MSNBC, because it makes them feel better about the fact that they have only white friends, but Joy's kind of their friend because I watch her every night. They all now got the message. If I vote Republican, I'm racist.
That's right.
That's the job of that. It's not analysis. It's political sophistry. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:37 on this Super Wednesday in your nation's capital. Thanks so much for tuning in. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas is going to join our conversation. At 7:05, the spokesperson for the Republican National Committee, Madison Gesiotto Gilbert.
That's okay.
It's a good name. I like that. Yeah. 7:35, Bethany Mandel running for Montgomery County School Board. And then 8:05, Rich Masters, spokesperson for the Recall Charles Allen campaign. And then 8:35, our buddy Hogan Gidley is going to give us his analysis on where things stand right now in this primary race. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Julie, Joe Biden and Nikki Haley, they're vying for the opportunity to square off one-on-one with Joe Biden for the presidential election. Joe Biden was asked as he was walking up the short stairs of Air Force One. He was stopped by a reporter and asked, why are you losing to Donald Trump in all the polls right now? And he leaned forward and was barely able to eke out a sentence because he has such vocal fatigue. That's a sign of aging, by the way. You know how you ever see he does an appearance and they've got the big microphone at the podium there with the seal, and then he's talking into a handheld mic that's right up against his mouth like that. It's because one of the signs of rapid aging process is vocal thinness. You're vocal, but you don't have the breast support anymore to support your voice. It's my greatest fear.
Of course.
I mean, that's my moneymaker, right? So I've
Right.
looked into this. And if you have anyone in your life who's been aging, as soon as they hit a certain point, that's something that declines really rapidly.
Interesting.
He can barely make noise with his his larynx right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Watch for that at the State of the Union tomorrow night, by the way. Anyway, he leaned in, and he was barely able to eke this out, but I think you'll be able to hear.
I told you guys didn't report. I'm winning. Five in a row. You guys only look at the New York Times. They're a great paper.
All right, so he was asked, why are you losing to Donald Trump?
I love him suggesting they live in a bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's not wrong.
Right.
But to suggest that bubble doesn't include a daily delivery of the New York Times
Not
is
exactly
what's
the
kind
Charles
of
Murray
funny.
bubble, but yeah.
So he's being challenged by how he's losing in the polls right now to Donald Trump. Hey, if you're doing so great and if the American people like your policies, why are you losing to Trump? And he claims here that he is actually beating Trump in the latest polls. 5 polls in a row, he says.
Mm-hmm.
I'm winning, but you guys don't report it.
I told you guys didn't report. I'm winning. Five in a row. You guys only look at the New York Times. They're a great paper.
All right, so let's look at the facts here. First of all, the Real Clear Politics average of polls show Donald Trump having a lead over Joe Biden since mid-October. There was one point at the beginning of November where they tied again.
Okay.
But in the Real Clear Politics average of polls, Trump has had a clear lead over him. Speaking of vocal fatigue. Meanwhile, let's look at just since mid-February. The latest polls, according to Real Clear Politics, out of 10 polls, Joe Biden is only leading in 3 of them. 2 of those 3, he's only leading by 1 point. All right?
Yeah.
But let's go further because he said specifically the New York Times, the last 5. He said last 5 polls. Okay, here are the last 5 polls. Morning Consult, Biden +1. CBS News, Trump +4. Tip poll, Biden +1. Fox News poll, Trump +2.
Oh, you missed New York Times.
I held that for last. And the 5th of the last 5 polls is, in fact, New York Times that he just cited, and that shows Trump +4.
Wow.
So actually in the New York Times poll, he's actually losing to Trump worse than he is in the Fox News poll.
Same with CBS News poll.
Yeah. So there's a couple of conclusions to reach here. Joe Biden is lying when he says I'm leading in the last 5 polls, and especially you should look at the New York Times because in the New York Times, he's actually doing worse in the last 5 polls, other than the one where he's leading by 1 point. He's actually doing worse in New York Times than the other polls. Either he's lying about that, or what I suspect is happening, his team is lying to him.
They are lying to him.
They're lying to him.
I mean, this Harvard-Harris poll, which was 2 weeks ago, Trump's up 6. There's no way he can be coming to that conclusion. And again, this confidence, I'm up in the last 5. First of all, that's a lie. But also the +1, he's in the last 5, he's only in the last 5, in 2, he's been up, but only by 1 point.
If you expand the window a little bit, going back to the first day of February, of all of the polls, and there's about 20 polls since the first day of February, he is only leading in 3 out of those 20 polls.
Yeah.
And again, he's leading by 1 in 2 of those 3 polls. Is it possible they're just keeping him in the dark?
Yes, it absolutely is possible.
That they're just like, oh, everything's fine, sir.
Look,
everything's fine.
Look, there's been theories and I wouldn't certainly not call them conspiracy theories, but there have been theories out there. Who's in charge? Who's in charge, right? It is obvious that he is not in charge. And in order to keep him sort of probably happy, sure, they have to lie to him. And I don't know that I don't think it's probably that hard.
In true Andrew Breitbart fashion, can I make this story also about the media, though?
Of course.
Because you're a reporter. You have the honor and privilege of having a job that allows you to stand on the tarmac and shout a question to the president as he's walking up the little short stairs of Air Force One. And you decide the question you're going to ask is, why is Trump beating you in the polls? And when he turns and lies to you.
No follow-up. Yep.
Why weren't you equipped to be able to say, well, Mr. President, actually, he's beating you in 17 out of the last 20 polls, and the New York Times actually has you losing by 4 points. Why aren't you prepared with that? What we just did,
because they're in on it, Larry.
That is exactly why. Exactly why. And that's what everyone needs to understand, that this reporter wasn't actually challenging Joe Biden because they were trying to catch him off guard or something. The White House wanted the video of Joe Biden saying, "I'm winning in 5 polls."
So we always talk about these white liberal women in Northern Virginia, and and let's even Montgomery County and some areas of Maryland. They're going to see that clip and they're going to go, "Oh, Biden's up."
There you go.
Done.
And they keep lying about him.
That was the job. That was the job.
It's 5:44.
Making sense of your world.
Appreciate what you do.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Big news out of Arizona. Listen, everything's hot in Arizona, but according to my 19-year-old son, who, you know how 19-year-old boys can be, the hottest thing in Arizona is Senator Hottie, Kyrsten Sinema. I don't mean to reduce a politician to just how she looks, but it's not me. It's my son. He's got a bit of a crush on the Kyrsten Sinema. She's got the glasses.
It's just your son.
Anyway, and she's also very independent-minded and sort of quirky, and sometimes she's right and sometimes she's wrong, but she's been a colorful member of the United States Senate.
Yes, she has.
Earlier in this past year, she switched to independent and continued to caucus with the Democrats, but she didn't feel like she had a home with Democrats anymore, and yesterday she made an announcement about her upcoming election.
Attacking your opponents on cable news or social media. Compromise is a dirty word. We've arrived at that crossroad, and we chose anger and division. I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. I love Arizona, and I am so proud of what we've delivered. Because I choose civility, understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done, I will leave the Senate at the end of this year. Over my career, I've shown how government can work for everyday people. Partnering with Senator Rob Portman and 8 other bipartisan senators, our historic infrastructure law gave Arizonans better broadband, new roads and bridges, cleaner air and water, and more job opportunities. Teaming up with Senator Todd Young, we saved the CHIPS and Science Law from partisan collapse. Now America and Arizona can lead the way in semiconductor manufacturing, and our country is safer and more secure.
And Kyrsten Sinema and other political observers will say that kind of, reasonable, moderate, work together with Rob Portman and Mitt Romney, that kind of politician is no longer welcome in today's America, and now no longer welcome in the United States Senate. That there's no gratitude for somebody who tries to work with the other side. You don't have Manchin anymore. You don't have Sinema. You don't have Romney. This is a constant message that we're getting. And now the new senator from Arizona is going to be either Carrie Lake or it's going to be Representative Ruben Gallego, which is the opposite extreme.
Yeah.
And I get that message, but at the same time, I think that there are a lot of voters who feel very much betrayed by people who say, hey, we need to compromise to work with the other side, because Republicans always feel like the compromise means you compromise and bend your will to our ideas.
That's right. It's a compromise. But she was a rare example of someone who would work with Republicans. So it was that what we're describing as sort of fair play, that it wasn't just one-sided. She just didn't demand that Republicans bend to her. I think she was willing to talk and compromise. And she ruined some of Biden's initiatives. So she took a strong stance against them. So
right, but and this is where, and again, maybe it's my political bias and my political perspective, but when a Democrat compromises on something and says, okay, fine, Republicans, we'll give that one to you, the thing they're giving to us is fundamental things that shouldn't be, some sort of concession. They still won't give us one on securing the border,
right?
Which is a fundamental principle of a republic, of a country, of a nation.
No, you're absolutely right.
And okay, fine, we'll compromise, and we're not going to grant amnesty and citizenship to the 20 million people we've let in, okay? Are you happy now we compromise? No, that's not a compromise. That should be the baseline.
No, and they've gone so extreme, from everything from abortion to transing kids to porn in schools. It has become so radical that any meeting in the middle now is not something Republicans are going to feel comfortable with.
That said, game on in Arizona now. This was going to be a three-way race. And may I just offer you some cynical political analysis?
Please do.
This is a gift to Democrats.
Oh, absolutely.
If she stayed in the race, she was going to finish third as an independent, but the votes she got were going to be mostly Democrat votes, and it would have hurt Gallego's chances. So now it's going to be Ruben Gallego against Carrie Lake. It's going to be, MAGA extremist racists, and, they hate Latinos and they hate people of color. It's going to be the Joy Reid campaign down in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be pretty, but they're going to raise a lot of money. And it's going to definitely make Arizona one of the hottest states going into November, not just for the presidential electoral college map, but also for the Senate race. This could be a Senate seat that tips the balance in the majority.
Interesting.
For Republicans. So we'll keep an eye on that one. 5:50.